The true forbidden knowledge is this: you are not one person, you are many. And the part of you you killed to survive is the only part that can save you now. What if I told you that the life you've been fighting for, the respectable career, the stable relationship, the person you show the world, is a perfectly constructed tomb? That your greatest struggle isn't a lack of discipline or a bad mindset, but a profound, desperate plea from the ghost self, the authentic core you systematically buried alive years ago? That your anxiety, your burnout, and that dull, constant ache of meaninglessness are not symptoms of failure, but sacred breadcrumbs leading you back to the self you had to crucify? This is not psychology. This is cosmology. We dissolve the illusion. We unlock the spiritual code of the ghost self, the terrifying and exhilarating reality that your authentic power lies in the parts of you you were conditioned to kill. You'll discover why Carl Jung was obsessed with the biblical story of the prodigal son, and how it reveals the brutal mechanics of ego death as the only path to genuine resurrection. You will learn the 3 archetypal stages of this death and rebirth cycle, and how to use the ancient wisdom of the tomb and the womb to bring your exiled self back from the psychological dead. This is not about feeling better. It's about becoming whole. It's about merging your successful but hollow persona with the wild, powerful, and potentially dangerous shadow you locked in the basement. If you click away, you stay suspended in the comfortable lie. You miss the secret of the inner exodus and continue the exhausting charade of being half a person, forever chasing a feeling of wholeness that can only be found on the other side of a profound psychological sacrifice. You'll keep asking, why am I doing all the right things but nothing feels real? The answer is here. And by the end, I'll give you a 7-day resurrection protocol, a precise, practical set of daily actions that will force an encounter with your ghost self, transforming your current burnout into a profound, sacred calling. When you hear the secret word to comment at the end, I want you to make a public commitment to this inner work. The universe watches what you declare. Meet Elias. He is, by all measures, the success story. 38 years old, a partner at a reputable finance firm in Chicago, 2 impeccably behaved children, and a meticulously organized life. He'd wake up at 5:30, stare at the ceiling, feel nothing. The man who once dreamed of traveling the world with a worn-out backpack and writing poetry that mattered now meticulously tracked his 401k and worried about the property tax increase. He was a master architect of his own cage. The crisis wasn't dramatic. It was a slow, toxic leak. Every morning, the suit he put on felt less like clothing and more like a plaster cast. In meetings, he'd nod and offer the appropriate, polished advice. But an internal monologue screamed, "You are a fraud. This isn't you." He remembered the ghost self clearly. It was the 19-year-old Elias who sold his few possessions to buy a one-way train ticket to Buenos Aires, intending to stay until the money ran out and his Spanish was fluent. That boy was reckless, unreliable, emotionally volatile, and fiercely, undeniably alive. But the firm needed consistency. His wife needed security. His parents needed pride. The world demanded an adult. So bit by bit, Elias performed the surgical operation. He cut out the impulsive artist, the passionate traveler, the risk-taker. He filed the edges off his personality until he was a smooth, compliant surface. He believed he was simply growing up. In truth, he was committing a psychological murder. The pain manifested as a quiet, desperate rage. He'd snap at his children for being too loud, for having the freedom he sacrificed. He started drinking a glass of scotch every night, not for enjoyment, but to dull the incessant whispering from the deep, dark well. His perfectionism was a shield. His control was a prayer to the god of stability. One Tuesday, staring at a spreadsheet filled with numbers that felt utterly meaningless, a phrase popped into his mind. Unbidden, like a message carved into a stone. I killed the one I loved most to keep the others happy. The realization hit him with a visceral force, a knot in his stomach so tight he had to clutch his desk. He hadn't just lost his youthful self. He had sacrificed it. He had traded a soul for a salary. He had achieved everything he was supposed to, and in the mirror he saw a successful stranger. He was standing in his beautiful, expensive life, and he was hollow. He was the walking dead. This was his pain point, his crisis moment, his tomb. Carl Jung discovered that resurrection isn't a future religious event. It's a recurring, immediate psychological necessity. It is the process of bringing the ghost self back from the dead. Jung called this exiled, essential core the shadow. Not just the dark parts, the greed, the rage, but also the suppressed golden parts, the spontaneous joy, the authentic creativity, the capacity for powerful, radical love. The shadow holds the raw, untamed energy of the self that society, family, and the ego decided was unacceptable. This is why Jung spent years dissecting the biblical parable of the prodigal son. The son, consumed by wanderlust and a thirst for radical experience, demands his inheritance and flees. He embraces the shadow. He goes to a far country and wastes everything. This journey is not a moral failure. It is an archetypal necessity. The far country is your exile. It's the symbolic place where you spend your vital energy trying to live up to a false persona. It's where Elias became the man he thought he should be, rather than the man he was. Jung realized the crucial psychological moment isn't the son's failure, but the moment he realizes, I must return to my father's house. This return is not repentance, it is individuation. It is the ego, broken and humbled, realizing it needs the totality of the self, even the messy prodigal parts, to be whole. Here's what this means in your life. The part of you that is currently causing you the most trouble, your uncontrollable craving, your crippling fear of intimacy, your rebellious streak, is often the prodigal son, the ghost self, begging to be integrated. It is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a vital energy to be restored. Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The darkness is not a void. It is a holding cell for your exiled power. You can see this play out. When you judge someone else's unbridled passion, you are staring directly at the passion you buried inside yourself. You hate in others what you deny in yourself. That is the mirror of the shadow. You exiled the poet to be the accountant, and now the accountant is miserable. This is not theology. This is a mandate for wholeness. Stop. Seriously, pause this video right now. I'm giving you a direct line to your ghost self. Open your notes app or grab a pen. We are doing a psychological exorcism. Write down the simple question and don't think about the answer. Let it emerge raw and brutal. What part of me died to survive the world I was born into? Was it the free-spirited dancer, the brutally honest truth-teller, the emotional reactor, the naive, hopeful dreamer? Don't write what should have died. Write the raw, immediate answer that flashes into your mind. This is your ghost self's name. Write it down now. Don't think, just write. Do it. Pause. The next section, the deepest layer of this code, will make no sense until you have named your ghost. The clock is ticking on your own resurrection. Now that you have named your ghost, we dive deeper into the 3 archetypal stages of its return. This is the sacred, brutal blueprint for the resurrection of your own soul. The first stage is crucifixion, the shattering of the persona. This is the death of the ego identity, the comfortable but false self you built for the world. This is the psychological breaking point, the divorce, the layoff, the burnout, the loss of faith, when your control mechanisms utterly fail. The persona, the respectable mask, shatters. Its biblical parallel is the literal crucifixion of Christ, not physical pain but ego death. The moment of ultimate helplessness, where the divine identity is stripped down to raw, vulnerable humanity. In modern life, it's Elias hitting rock bottom in his expensive office, realizing the suit was the cage. It's the moment the successful identity felt like a lie. When your identity shatters, that's not the end of the line. That's the launch pad. The second stage is the descent, confronting the tomb. After the shattering, you enter the darkness. The tomb. This is a period of withdrawal, depression, and confusion. It feels like a void. Jung taught that you must stay in the void. You must descend into the unconscious. This is shadow work. You sit with the exiled parts, the feelings you suppressed, the rage you never expressed, the grief you never felt. Its biblical parallel is the 3 days in the tomb before the resurrection. Not a period of resting, but of alchemical transformation. The soul is grappling with the deepest mysteries of itself, the harrowing of hell. In modern life, it's the intense, uncomfortable silence Elias faced when he quit drinking, and the noise of his false life subsided. The moment you stop distracting yourself and the crushing weight of your unlived life finally descends. Your shadow isn't a monster to be slain. It is sacred gold, guarded by dragons. The third stage is the womb, the emergence of the whole self. The darkness of the tomb is simultaneously the womb. The disintegration of the old self creates a space for the integration of the ghost self. This is the profound rejoining of the respectable persona and the wild, powerful shadow. The two halves of your life finally accept each other. You no longer try to be authentic. You are authentic because you are whole. Its biblical parallel is the resurrection itself. The physical body, the old psychological structure, is transformed, not merely revived. A completely new being emerges, marked by the scars of the journey, but possessing a fullness and power that the previous self lacked. In modern life, it's Elias realizing his youthful desire for travel and art was not a weakness, but a vital energy source. He doesn't quit his job. He uses his discipline, the persona, to structure time for radical creativity, the shadow. He is now more successful because he is all of himself. You do not escape the grave. You become the architect of your own rebirth. There is a silence deeper than loneliness, where the soul remembers what the world tried to make you forget. This is the sound of the ghost self stepping out of the shadows. The sound of your life finally becoming your own. Not someday. Now. Remember Elias? His moment of crucifixion in the office wasn't the end, it was the brutal beginning. He didn't quit his job instantly. That would have been another impulsive act of the prodigal son. Instead, he started with a radical acceptance of his descent. He committed to sitting in the uncomfortable stillness of his life. He stopped drinking the scotch. The screaming in his mind intensified. He realized he was not sad. He was numb. He was a master of suppression, and the ghost self was demanding to be felt. Following the principles of the descent, he began what he called shadow writing. Every day he wrote a letter from the 19-year-old traveler, the part he killed. The letters were angry, poetic, demanding, and full of raw life. You built a coffin for the world's praise, one read. You traded the horizon for a fence. At first, nothing changed. He felt foolish, melodramatic. His persona fought back fiercely, whispering, "This is self-indulgent nonsense. Get back to work." But on day 23, he had a breakthrough. He wasn't just the cold, logical finance partner. He wasn't just the reckless, emotional artist. He was both. He saw that the discipline he'd cultivated was the perfect vessel for the passion he'd suppressed. The ghost self was not telling him to abandon his life, it was telling him to inhabit it fully. His transformation was earned. It was messy. It involved a difficult, honest conversation with his wife about the profound emptiness he felt, a fear-inducing vulnerability that felt like another death. He realized the most powerful thing his shadow wanted wasn't escape. It was authentic expression. He started a personal project, a complex financial model, but he framed it as a beautiful, abstract problem, a work of art. He infused his work with the obsessive passion of his youth. His colleagues noticed. Not because he was happier, but because he was fuller. He no longer felt obligated. He felt compelled. He became sharper, more creative, more intuitive. The energy he had used to suppress the ghost self was now being used to fuel his totality. The prodigal son returned to the father's house, but he didn't submit. He didn't repent. He brought the wild, brutal wisdom of the far country with him. Elias resurrected his whole self, making his life a womb, where both the responsible adult and the passionate artist could finally coexist. His anxiety didn't vanish, but its meaning transformed. It was no longer a sign of failure. It was the healthy friction of two powerful forces working in unison. This is your direct path to the integration of your ghost self. This is your 7-day resurrection protocol. Simple, powerful, and scientifically proven to interrupt your deeply grooved neural pathways. The protocol is the sacred 10-minute synthesis. Every day for the next 7 days, you will perform this 2-part 10-minute practice. First, your morning. The persona's duty for 5 minutes. Immediately upon waking and before looking at your phone, write a brief 4-sentence journal entry detailing what you must accomplish today to be the respectable, effective person you are. This honors your existing ego. It solidifies your presence in the material world. It uses your discipline. Second, your evening, the ghost's revelation, for 5 minutes. Before bed, ask yourself this question and write a raw, uncensored stream of consciousness answer. If I were to live today as the person I killed, what is the single, reckless, true thing I would have done? This forces a confrontation. It is a neurological pattern interrupt. You are using the established persona to structure the morning and the suppressed shadow to inject raw truth into the evening. You are building a bridge between the two selves, creating a pathway in your brain for wholeness. The scientific insight here is that by giving the shadow a non-destructive, ritualized outlet, its energy dissolves the anxiety it was causing in the day. You are inviting the prodigal son home for a scheduled conversation, not a riot. Do not skip a day. This is the sacred work of self-reclamation. Comment whole if you commit publicly to this 7-day challenge. This is your public declaration to the universe that you are ready to be all of who you are, the dark and the light, the tomb and the womb. But there is a final, devastating layer to this mystery. Something I haven't revealed in this video. Something Jung discovered while studying these archetypes that nearly destroyed him, and that led him to a terrifying, forbidden conclusion. This entire process of individuation, the resurrection of the ghost self, is only half the story. The ultimate act of psychological maturity requires confronting what Jung called the shadow of Christ himself. Not the loving shepherd, but the brutal, jealous, and necessary aspect of the divine that the modern world has sanitized away. It is the secret of why true power is always slightly dangerous. If you thought confronting your personal shadow was difficult, wait until you face the collective, terrifying truth buried beneath the surface of all Western consciousness. Next video, we open this vault. We reveal the ultimate radical secret of the divine shadow and what it means for your power in the world. This is the missing piece. Don't miss this revelation. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to be present when we shatter the final illusion. Your journey to wholeness is not over, it is only beginning.